Hey everybody, today we are going to be talking about actors that we think are underrated and why we feel that way. I do a lot of, topic videos on overrated directors, overrated actors and such, and I thought, let's do some underrated ones. You guys wrote in giving your opinions, and so, yeah, let's give some actors, some unsung heroes, some love. Roy Scheider, immortalized for his performance in All That Jazz alone. He could also do crowd pleasers like Jaws. I am so glad that All That Jazz just keeps growing and growing in the collective. I saw the film maybe in the mid 2000s, and I was just so struck by it, so amazed by it. And yes, it had that kind of cult following at the time, but it wasn't like it is today, whether that has to do with, it being remastered, Criterion Collection, whatever. But yeah, I thought it was just one of the most ambitious, meta, psychedelic, introspective musicals that I had ever seen at the time. And, there's so many things going on in that film, and yet, the performance of Roy Scheider is very kind of zen at the center. It's like he keeps everything grounded, and I think that's what's so great about him as an actor. Unfortunately, people like that don't get the Academy Awards typically because their technique is invisible. And yes, while, big scene chewing type of performance, very self-aware types of performances, they tend to be crowd pleasers. They get, Academy acclaim and all of that. I tend to respect the actors that are just kind of, more naturalistic, I suppose, because that is difficult in a completely different way, but you also don't get the credit for it typically. In All That Jazz, the character that he's playing is somebody who's kind of dead inside to himself. It's like he's in a lot of pain, but to such a degree that he doesn't even recognize it anymore. He's perhaps desensitized, so he's just kind of going through the motions and just doesn't care what happens to him. And there's something about that invisible technique that works there because it's just like he's kind of in this lull and he's just, yeah, like I said, going through the motions. But because he's such a strong actor and he brings such authenticity, it's like you believe that he's a fully complex character. Even in a movie like Jaws, it's somebody that you want to write off because he's the protagonist. It's like it's so easy to get caught up in like Richard Dreyfuss's performance or like Quint as an example because they're very colorful characters that offset more the deadpan. But it's not just an actor reading lines. He feels like he's lived in the role of Brody. He feels like, yes, a family man, and clearly he's built a backstory, or there is a backstory to the character, but never revealed in detail. But it's like, yeah, you can feel all of that in his performance. I do agree with you, and the more that I watch a movie like Jaws, the more I watch movies like All That Jazz, I tend to appreciate performances like that, just with maturity in my own taste. Okay, this is a good one. Michelle Pfeiffer, because she is so beautiful. I think she doesn't get the recognition she deserves. She is immensely talented and versatile. So I see what you mean there because, yeah, when you think Michelle Pfeiffer, it's like she's kind of like a household name. Everybody knows who she is. How could you consider her to be underrated? She's not underrated as a star, maybe underrated as an actor. And that's exactly what you're saying. When somebody is attractive, particularly somebody that is, just untouchably attractive, like Michelle Pfeiffer, unfortunately, that is a distraction. It just is. Unfortunately, that talent, it's just, you're never going to be taken seriously, or you're likely to not be taken seriously in the same way you are for your looks. And I think if she were maybe less beautiful, she would have gotten more serious roles. But when I think of Michelle Pfeiffer, first thing that comes to my mind is, yes, it is Scarface, which obviously was a really early role for her. I think, yeah, she was like in her early 20s. And, having to work with this legend, especially somebody who is scene chewing in the way that Al Pacino is in that movie. He's clearly borrowing from like James Cagney, that type of era. But she had to be the one to have the mature performance and maybe a bit understated. And I think that performance, or I should say that character that she's playing in that film, I think represents exactly what you're saying. Because that character is in a lot of pain. And because I think Michelle Pfeiffer has such expressive eyes, they're so searing, so piercing when she gives the camera a look. As the character, she's so beautiful, people, just dismiss her. And because of how she looks, she's gotten to a certain place in her life, and now she feels like she's trapped. And, I guess maybe I'm a woman as well, so I can feel some sympathy for that to a degree. That character is so much more interesting, in my opinion, in the original Scarface from the 1930s, but I think what Michelle Pfeiffer infuses in the character from the Brian De Palma version is incredibly mature. And she's always so committed and serious in her performances, but it's like within that, she can be more melodramatic, she can be more, subtle, she can be more comedic. A performance that sticks out to me maybe in the last, I don't know, 10 years of her career that I liked was her performance in Mother. I thought she completely stole the show, her and Ed Harris. I'm like, you can see, it's like those are two veteran performers. All right, next one. There are few actors who were more fit and poised for stardom in the last quarter century than Guy Pearce. Aside from being slickly handsome, he showcased an extraordinary versatility, from playing a raucous drag queen in The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, to a haunted amnesiac in Memento, but his Ed Exley in LA Confidential, that remains his greatest showcase. Portraying a cop, once steely and uptight, shrewd and naive, Pearce more than held down the center of that great film, all while holding his own against peak-era Kevin Spacey, Russell Crowe, in this breakthrough performance for American audiences. Stardom seemed likely for him, and yet it never happened. Pearce receded into doing supporting roles in films both acclaimed and forgettable for the next 2 decades, which isn't to say he didn't shine in any of them, but his career is not what was predicted. The only reassurance to be had from this outcome was that it was a voluntary move on Pearce's part. He did not wish to have the burden of stardom and made a conscious effort to turn his back on it. So he remained a solid but under-the-radar character actor, up until The Brutalist, where he brought great texture to his monstrous industrialist and received a long overdue Oscar nomination. Here's hoping this leads to bigger and better things. Yeah, so Guy Pearce is easily one of my picks as well. And I couldn't believe it that The Brutalist was his first Oscar nomination. That's insane. That is a crime. I think Guy Pearce is a better actor than most of the actors in Hollywood, and I think he's a better leading man than most of the major celebrities. I think he's way more interesting than a Leo DiCaprio or a George Clooney. The first film I think I ever saw him in was Memento, and so instantly I thought, yeah, this guy could be amazing in thrillers, dramas. He could be an action star because, as you say, he's very sleek and he has that leading man look. He's incredibly handsome. So there is that accessibility of him as a leading man, but he has the ability of some great, versatile character actor. It's like whatever he's playing, I am fully convinced of it, and I don't see Guy Pearce. And for somebody who has established themselves as a really great actor, it's hard to get that out of your head at a certain point. But no, I just think there's something about the way he just kind of massages into a role. The Brutalist is another great example of that. But yeah, LA Confidential, there's something about that performance that is my favorite from him. I think it's just, it hit the perfect sweet spot at the perfect time. As you say, it was introducing him to American audiences. But he has a sort of an American magnetism, as in it's like, oh, this guy is perfect for a Hollywood movie. And it is kind of perfect because he is unknown. And, the character is supposed to be somebody who, he's dismissed at first. People see him as a pushover. We learn, obviously, that he's a lot more complex than we initially think. But Pearce is magnetic as a result, as always. And yes, he completely holds his own with some of the great actors of that time. And I'm happy that at this point in time, he's the one who's kind of getting the accolades where I feel they've been deserved for so long. Now, as you say here, yeah, maybe he wasn't interested in, rising to the top and becoming that big leading man movie star. In order to do that, you've got to break a lot of eggs just, for that omelet. It's so cutthroat. It's so political. You have to want it badly, and yeah, some people just don't want it, and that's okay. It's like, look at all the stuff that he has done, but that he was able to age into a more robust role like The Brutalist. That film is so heavily flawed, but that's not Guy Pearce's fault. I think he does everything to make that character as compelling as he possibly could. I think he deserved more credit for that role, but like you say, hopefully this will help him gain more roles of that type. Dave Bautista. He's the best actor to come out of the WWE, and he has a wide range. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. There are the types like The Rock that come out of the WWE who are very concerned with branding and, very corporate, commercial. He's accessible. He wants to be liked, and that's fine. There's a market for that. May not be my thing, but, it exists. And then you have people like Dave Bautista, who I think he's underrated as a serious actor. He obviously is in all kinds of different movies, but I know he has expressed wanting to work with, serious directors, serious material, and doing more interesting roles, complex roles. And I think that's fantastic that he's so vocal about it and that he has a passion for it, because clearly he's talented at it. I saw him in, I don't know, the most recent M. Night Shyamalan movie. I can't even remember what it was called. But he was a standout in that film. There was something to that gentility, but also this edge and this fear that he could hurt you. That juxtaposition in him that I find to be quite interesting. I would love to see that explored more. I don't think all WWE alumni have to be this like big brand or whatever. I like that he's like, trying to be more artistic. Fantastic. But yes, that is the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits, and I also sell prints of my work. If that's something you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are great. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to all the new members. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.